Do you want to start reading more? I think I might help. Hi, I'm Øystein and I'm trying to become a bookworm. In May this year I decided to start reading. And in this video I'll give you some of the tips that helped me along my journey. Of course, reading is a very good hobby. It's supposed to give you more empathy. It slows down Alzheimer's disease. If you're a regular reader, it's supposed to lower your stress. It can improve your memory, and you get to experience a lot of different worlds. And of course you learn things, and the list just goes on. The first tip is to spend your time wisely. I know many of us think that we don't have the time to do what we want, but in the last couple of months I've found that I could find very many occasions to read, even when I think I don't have the time. Something you can do is cut out time that isn't valuable to you. When I started out reading, I had my Kindle app on my phone, and instead of scrolling social media, I started reading, and I had to focus on that task. So each time I began opening Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, I told myself to open Kindle instead, and that way I read a lot of pages. Also, you have a lot of time when you're commuting, maybe, if you're taking the bus or train, or if you fly a lot, you can read while you do that. So I think I would say that cutting out social media for me was the biggest reading time I could find. I also started reading when I took the bus or the train, and I thought to myself that even though this is not a lot of time, I have to read some pages, and these pages really add up. As a beginner reader, my second tip is read smaller books. I found myself in the situation that I always wanted to read larger books because they sounded more interesting. But if I only read larger books, I did not want to finish, or could not finish, or I did not finish. So by reading smaller books, you can pick a small book that you read in between two larger books, for example. It really motivated me to read more because I could say that I read a book. So by reading a book, I felt accomplishment, and there are many examples of shorter stories being great stories. Third tip is to read a lot of different things, non-fiction or fiction. I found that if I mix things up, I don't get bored. So reading something fun, something scary, something exciting, and something that adds value to your life, or a book that helps you learn a new skill, for me that worked out great. And this ties together with tip number 4, which is read several books at the same time. When I started reading, I thought this was a joke because I could barely keep my mind on one book. But I found that if I read 2 very different books, I could easily juggle these books at the same time. And I've sort of had a pattern where I read non-fiction when I'm commuting, for example, and fiction when I'm relaxing. So they have gotten 2 special roles in my reading life. The idea behind this is that you're always got a book that excites you. So if you're not in the mood for one book, you can pick another one and then just go back to the other book when you're feeling like it. Now I'm only reading one, but in the start it was really useful to always have something engaging. And one book I spent several weeks on as a sidetrack because I did not really like it. And that leads me over to the next tip, and that's quit reading, or just quit reading that specific book. It's no point in reading books you don't like. And this is the one of the tips that I don't really follow myself, because I should have quit many books by now. But I haven't, because I'm a finisher. Doesn't make sense. But I'm hoping other people might be smarter than me. So I started out thinking that I had a sort of 10% rule. If I read 10% and it didn't engage me, I would just quit. But in my process, I moved that target to 25%. And when I read 25%, I felt like I had to finish the book. But I'm going to try to quit more books in the future. Tip number 6 is be more positive towards your own reading. I have been there myself. I've told myself that I'm not a reader and thus I don't read. But each time I read, I feel better. And if I think to myself that I should read and be positive towards my reading, I read more. And I tell myself that reading 2 pages is better than none. The next tip is something that I haven't tried yet in this time since I started up in May, and that is take breaks. I know that the time is going to come when I'm not in the mood to read anything. My feeling is that every reader gets to this point. I'm sort of fearing this moment, but I'm just going to wait and hope it doesn't come. But I know it will. So it's okay to take breaks, and it's okay to get to this point. But remember to look up tip number 6. Be positive. Number 8 on this list is the Kindle app or any other reading app. So when I started reading, I decided to buy a Kindle because that would motivate me to read more. At this point, I read mostly physical books, but if I'm commuting, I either bring my Kindle or my Kindle app. And the great thing about this is that you always have your phone with you, or 99.9% of you. On the Kindle app, you have very short pages. And I find that quite motivating because you always feel like you're turning to the next page. And even though you're just on the train for 10 minutes, you feel like you've read a lot of pages. And of course the Kindle app remembers where you left off, so you don't have to think about that kind of stuff. With the app, it's also useful in the moments you thought you wouldn't have a chance to read, but you suddenly have a spare moment. And these little moments really add up. I've mainly read non-fictional books on my Kindle app, because these are kinda slow sometimes, but reading on my Kindle app I read in small steps, and that makes me feel like I'm progressing, even though the books are kind of hard to read sometimes. At number 9 we have a reading schedule, or just times you know you're going to read. For many people it's lying in bed before you're going to sleep and you read a couple of pages, and many people get to read a lot in these moments. For me, I have that moment, but I also have if I'm eating alone. And this way I know that if I'm eating alone, I'm going to read. And this really makes reading a habit, because if you do it at certain times each day, it's just something you do. It's a part of your life and you're a very, very good reader. So over to the last point I have on my list for today, and that's read something you enjoy. And I know this might sound like a joke to many of you, but before I started reading again now, I read a lot of boring books. And a lot of boring books that I thought I had to read. And a lot of large boring books I thought I had to read. So thinking that reading should be something fun and something you enjoy doing and not only for the learning has made me a happier reader. So when I now read books, I read the books I want to read. And that's the biggest difference in the way I read now. Because each book I pick because I want to read the book. Almost all the time it's that way. Okay, it's like that nearly all the time. I sometimes read books I think I have to read. But sometimes I enjoy those as well. So try to find out what you actually like reading. And that's the process I'm in the middle of now. Trying to narrow in on authors, on genres, and book types I like to read, and that makes the experience a lot more fun. So these were my 10 tips for how you can read more and maybe how you can enjoy reading more. If you like this content, please consider subscribing to my channel. Give me input if you have other suggestions for how to keep on going, how to keep motivating yourself to read more, and how to enjoy the process more. Thank you for watching my video. Hope you have a great day. Bye.